Hello and welcome back to Ripper's Home for Imaginary Friends. It is I, Dave Makes Noises, the Coco of Dungeons & Dragons Storytime on YouTube. Now then, gamers, what NPC did you make on a whim and turned out to be your favorite? Part 1. Arundel the bartender and bard, mixer of drinks and owner of the changeling's child. He had been married to an Aarakocra named Rose. He was just meant to be the owner of the tavern, and that's it. Known for their top-of-the-line drinks, but he eventually became a staple NPC of my campaign since they were constantly somehow coming back to the tavern. They even took missions from him. Eventually, his wife passed away and he fell into a state of depression, even closing the doors to the changeling's child, but the party had done a whole 3 sessions of just trying to cheer him up. They ended up throwing him a party and helping him reopen the tavern, even renovating it with help from the rest of the town. Just shows how some players can really get attached to the NPCs. Crap'n'Shits the Goblin. Crap'n'Shits is a high-level magic user who is able to travel between planes and somehow moves faster than the party to whatever location they end up. He may or may not be there. If I have them roll perception or investigation in a town, and they roll a nat 1, they'll find a goblin at a lemonade stand. He also uses this powerful magic to open up a portal to the plane of infinite junk. Essentially, here's a bunch of useless magic items in one fashion or another. A few I stole from MrRipper videos, not gonna lie. Hey, that's what's up. Thank you for the love. That's so cool. For example, one player got a pair of gloves titled the Gloves of Stealing. Naturally, our rogue got these, and soon enough they were trying to steal a sword from a blacksmith. Instead, the letters I, N, and G all shot from his hands, destroying the wall and busting a lower quality sword. Turns out they were the Gloves of Stealing. Greatest laugh from my party I'd ever gotten with that joke. If any of you guys are watching or reading this, don't mess with Crap'n'Shits and his Crap'n'Shit. He will demolish you. Pinky the Goblin. Originally, he was part of a trio of NPCs, Inky, Binky, and Pinky, just to help the players in an evil campaign I was running. But the dice loved Pinky. Session after session of avidly trying to kill this goblin to no avail. So he became a mascot of sorts for the group. The Goliath in the group even made a shoulder perch for him. We get to the end of the campaign and all my players had to do was collect a sword that was the only weapon that could harm the big bad evil guy. The thing about the sword was that it chose who would wield it, as I'm about to roll for which party member the sword would choose, and the party's bard chimes in with, "Wait, what about Pinky? He gets a shot at it, right?" Rolling my eyes, I agreed that if I rolled a 98 or higher, Pinky would get the sword. I rolled a 99. And yes, Pinky dealt the killing blow to the big bad evil guy. Sir Reginald Archibald Richardson Montgomery III, Esquire, and his steel defender butler, Thomas Alfred Robert Jenkins. He is a wealthy inventor and businessman, and he owns a mining company in the nearby mountains. He recently wanted to expand his business into adventuring. He will become the main quest giver and contact for the party. Totally snarky, uptight, and baffled that poor people don't understand him. Salvador de Grey was a 175-year-old miner who's still working. He drinks on the job, but he's got so much seniority nobody cares. He's deaf in one ear and speaks with a slurred Scottish accent. He's the most cynical person you meet, and he'll agree to anything to get you to go away. And then he'll find a loophole. He is deathly terrified of kitchenware, and he has an imaginary friend that died, and he's trying to avenge this person that never existed, but everyone says did, as to not anger him. The party calls him Vader the Mad, and whenever they return to this town, player character's hometown, they bring him liquor from all over the place and socks for his imaginary friend's grave. He was created because a player had written a weird old man who lived next door to her entire life into her backstory. She described him as a very, very old man, so I assumed he'd died, but when we visited her hometown, she expressed a desire to go and see this old man. I freaked out because I interpreted him as dead, and the party had a rough day, so instead of making him dead, I created Salvador. Steve. He was a sanitarium patient that one of the players met as they were trying to become a better therapist. Over the course of their reluctant surprise visits, his memories had been altered by his wife, who was a minotaur. She did this with a voodoo doll because she wanted to be with him. However, ironically, he was already in love with her, and so it was just unnecessary. He also made a bunch of meta observations and was a complete weirdo who got a lot of diseases and abnormalities that the player was able to cure. To this extent, he was later imbued with a strange power due some critical successes. He glowed with a yellow glowing light, which was the ripple. Yes, the one from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. After that, he was able to find his lost motorcycle, and he helped out the party later on as their vehicle got attacked by monsters. Also, he had a horse costume he had on for one visit, and he believed he was a horse, and for him, if he has on a costume of a creature type, he identifies as that creature if they use spells to target those certain creatures. For the horse, he was a beast. For every visit, his name would change slightly. Steve, just dumb alterations he made in his madness. He's not the only character I made on the spot, but one of the ones who's had a good debut. I'll throw my favorite NPC in. Gladius the Gladison III. He was made as a one-off joke as the ultimate gladiator in a one-shot that was never took off due to technical issues. Probably couldn't get everyone to show up. That's D&D for you. My goal was just to make the longest, most gladiatorial name I could, and I think I succeeded. In fact, I loved the name so much, I eventually fleshed out his background and gave him a place in my main story. His mother died, giving birth to the monstrous child, and sold into the gladiator pit because his father couldn't stand looking at Gladius. Having no name, he simply took the name of his weapon, and seeing his promise in the pit, his masters gave him the name of Gladison. After a while, he became known as the Glad because you could hear his cheers of joy and see his maddening grin from the stands. This was the third time they found someone with such an affinity for combat, so they named him the Third. Eventually, the pit could not hold his lust for battle as there became no other warrior that could satiate him. He broke out of the pit, slaughtering every guard that tried to stop him. He wandered into the woods as he saw beasts that he believed would give him the thrill of combat he seeked. He fought, killed, and chased these monsters into a cave. Multiple different monsters and beasts inhabit this bottomless cave, and this is where Gladius would find his haven. An endless stream of foes to challenge him and his blade. When the party finds him, his armor will be shattered. His weapon will be weakened and chipped. He'll be covered in blood and surrounded in corpses and smiling that damned smile. Due to his constant combat, his health will be lower than his max, and due to him being a completely overpowered monster, his current hit points will be the same as any other HP, despite only being 1/5 full. If he gets hit with a strong attack, critical hit with max damage type of attack, he will stop in the middle of combat and complement the attack, giving the players an extra opening. There's really no reason for him to be as powerful as he is, but that's what I love about him. He's the first character I made like that, and it turned out so well for me. One last detail about him, because of his time in the cave, the surrounding cities will have a lower rate of monster attacks, because most will be dealing with the intruder in their home. So, if they kill him, there's going to be a noticeable increase in monster attacks around the cities. I will go with 3, but 2 of them were kind of a package deal. The first is Burr. Burr was a bugbear berserker barbarian with a strength of 22, a con of 20, and an intelligence of 3. He does not speak, he merely grunts and gestures. He is so named because when asked his name, his response was a confused grunt of Brr? I created him to be the chief defender of the village where my party lived. My players freaking loved Brr. He was dumb as a brick, so he often got super confused at anything more than the simplest instructions, which often led to objects being flung through the air randomly. The party's wizard would sometimes use message to talk to Brr, who would then start beating on his head because he couldn't understand how he was hearing the voice in his head. Second and third are a pair of sailors. One was a warforged Way of the Sun's soul monk. He was dressed in a red leather duster, his metallic parts were painted gold, he shot his radiant sunbolt attacks from his palms, and his name was Captain Ishmael Ernman, or I Ernman for short. The other one was completely based on a 3D model I had of a gnome boxer with hands that were literally the size of his bald head. I named him Johnson D. Rockfist. Denzel the Barkeep. He was a half-orc barbarian that settled down after a life of adventure and started a tavern. This became the party's base of operations for some reason, and I had to make up random stories whenever they talked to Denzel. This became the party's base of operations for some reason, and I had to make up random stories whenever they talked to Denzel. Random man at the bar.
Did you know that Denzel killed a dragon once? Oh, you didn't? Well, let me tell you a story. One day, a horrible, nasty dragon came down from the mountains and started killing things. It came right right up to the tavern, stuck its head in through their window.
Points at window.
Denzel grabbed up his frying pan from the fires and beat its brains out with one blow. It was so mangled that he couldn't get its head stuffed, because no one likes to see stuffed meat pudding.
The stories kept getting more and more ridiculous, to the point where he had taken out the leader of the Underdark and had ridden an aboleth into the sunset on land. He was treated with respect and with a slight reverence for his deeds. He actually helped the party once and killed everything except one of the enemies they faced. Mine is an old man that first appeared way back in the days of advanced D&D. I was DMing my younger brother and a few of his friends, and they were playing a trio of very serious warriors. The plot of the moment was a fairly simple investigation of some suspicious people, and they came across a possible witness, an old man sitting on a bench near where one of the incidents had taken place. I don't recall the actual incidents and whatnot, but they aren't relevant. My brother's character approached the old man and greeted him politely. The old man ignored him. Bro tried again, but louder. On a whim, I responded to the louder greeting by having the old man look up at the sun and say, "Oh, it's almost lunchtime." Now, I was 14, my brother and his friends 12 and 11, and this response triggered their funny bones for some reason. They were trying to keep in character as serious warriors conducting a serious investigation, but I kept basically playing broken telephone with all their questions, with the old man giving more and more ridiculous answers. After about half an hour of the players cracking up, the youngest asked what time it was, and the old man replied with, "It happened about 4 hours ago. I just sat down here." So, to this day, every once in a while, when things are getting too serious, this old half-deaf man becomes a part of the scene and helps my players remember that the game can be funny too. Hello, my infinite little cosmic cupcakes, and thank you for expressing your consciousness in our direction for the entire duration of this video. If you have an NPC you created on a whim who became legend, please share about them in the comments section below. You can also just comment if you feel like saying hello, to be fair. We all need a friend sometimes. If you have another story you'd like to share with us, please do so on our official subreddit, r/MrRipper. If you want to see us stream, definitely check out our Twitch channels in the links below. And if you're a DM or a player looking for a group, you may wish to check out Mr. Ripper's Group Finder Discord server. I hope that you make time to look inward this week. As always, I have been Dave, and you have been lovely, and if you love me and want me to be happy, please follow my TikTok escapades at Dave Makes Noises. Thank you again for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s. Ding that dong for advantage on your next attack roll, saving throw, or ability check. I love you, and I hope your week is going beautifully. See you soon.